Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the meeting of the Township Committee for February 13th. Greg, has that notice been given?
Yes, adequate notice of this meeting. The Township Committee was given as required by the Open Public Meetings Act as follows. Notice was given to both the Chatham Courier and the Morris County Daily Record on January 3rd, 2020. Notice was posted on the bulletin board in the main hallway of the municipal building on January 3rd, 2020. And notice was filed with the Township Clerk on January 3rd, 2020.
Thank you, Greg. Can we stand for the flag salute? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have the roll call, Greg.
Mrs. Ewald?
Here.
Mrs. Fundaco?
Here.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Ness?
Here.
Mayor Kelly?
Here.
Okay, we have quorum, and just make sure everybody's mics are on.
Thank you very much. Before we get to the approval of the agenda, we did put out a statement earlier in the week about what our plans were regarding affordable housing for this meeting, and I just want to read that statement just for anyone who maybe didn't see it, and just so there's no misunderstanding about what's on the agenda and what's not on the agenda. For the past 6 weeks, members of the Township Committee and our professional staff have been working toward a court hearing scheduled for tomorrow, February 14th. The purpose of that hearing was for Superior Court Judge Michael Gauss to rule on the Township's request for a 120-day extension of the affordable housing compliance period, and a cross motion filed by Fair Share Housing Center opposing that request. The purpose of Friday's court session has now been changed. The Fair Share Housing Center and the Township asked Judge Gauss for a 2-week delay in ruling on the motions. Judge Gauss has agreed and will hold Friday's court session as a case management hearing and as a mediation session. Due to tomorrow's mediation session, the Township Committee members and staff will not be able to make any public comments regarding affordable housing at tonight's public meeting. We understand and share your frustration over not being able to discuss affordable housing tonight, but we trust that you understand that it is never a good idea for anyone involved in litigation to make public comments on the eve of a mediation session. Members of the public, of course, are welcome to come to the microphone and to make any comments they wish. We assure you that all comments will be considered by the Township Committee, but please understand that we will not be able to respond at this time. However, that does not mean that the Township Committee is not sharing the latest affordable housing developments with the public. For all the latest developments, please refer to the affordable housing page on the Township website, which is chathamtownship-nj.gov. And there, under the heading for legal notices and filings on the affordable housing page, you will find the Township's brief seeking a 120-day extension. It's listed there in the list as number 25. And under the number 25, there's also separate certifications. Actually, the sequential numbers after 25 are separate certifications from the Township Administrator, the Township Clerk, the Township Planner, and the Township Attorney in support of our motion. In that list, you'll also see, and this is as number 29 on the list, the cross motion filed by the Fair Share Housing Center opposing the Township's motion. Number 33 on the list is the Township's response to that cross motion. And number 35 is the newest motion filed by attorneys for Betsy Haar, owner of the Dixie-Dale property, to intervene, asking Judge Gauss to allow construction to move forward. These legal motions represent all of the newest developments on the affordable housing issue. No action on affordable housing will be taken by the Township Committee at tonight's meeting, and I thank you for your understanding. Now, with that being said, can I ask for approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Excuse me, Mr.
I'd
Mayor,
like to
just
make
a
a
point of order. Maybe you're making the change.
I don't know, maybe we're thinking in the same vein. I'd like to remove introduction of ordinances, ordinance number 1, 2020-03, energy aggregation. We're not prepared to move forward with that right now. Albert would like some time to review, and Bob had some comments on it, so.
Very good. Any other changes to the agenda? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Is there a motion to approve?
I made that motion.
okay. I guess I didn't ask for a second. No, you
Second.
seconded with the change. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good. The first items on the agenda are several proclamations, which we are pleased to be able to read tonight. The first is Resolution 2020-061, resolution of the Township of Chatham designating February as Black History Month. Whereas during Black History Month, we celebrate the many achievements and contributions made by African Americans to our economic, cultural, spiritual, and political development. And whereas in 1915, Dr. Carter Goodwin Woodson, noted black scholar and son of former slaves, founded the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, which was later renamed the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, ASALH. And whereas Dr. Woodson initiated Black History Week on February 12th, 1926, and for many years, the second week of February, chosen so as to coincide with the birthdays of Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln, was celebrated by African Americans in the United States. And whereas in 1976, as part of the nation's bicentennial, Black History Week was expanded and became established as Black History Month and is now celebrated all over North America. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Township Committee of the Township of Chatham that February 2020 is designated as Black History Month in Chatham Township, and the Township Committee urges all citizens to celebrate our diverse heritage and culture and continue our efforts to create a world that is more just, peaceful, and prosperous for all. That's our first proclamation.
It's set up as a resolution. Do you want to?
Can I have a motion to move that?
So moved.
And second? Second. Thank you.
Mrs. Ewald?
Yes.
Mrs. Fundaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ness?
Yes.
Mayor Kelly?
Yes. Our second proclamation, Karen, if I could hand that off to
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you. This is a resolution of the Township Committee of the Township of Chatham supporting the celebration of the 100th anniversary of women's suffrage. Whereas the year 2020 marks the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution, guaranteeing and protecting women's right to vote, and whereas this centennial offers an opportunity to commemorate a milestone of democracy, that the right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the federal or state governments on account of gender, and whereas New Jersey has had a long, storied history in the suffrage movement, with New Jersey women playing a crucial role in pursuing the rights of women to vote, and whereas in 1776, women property owners were enfranchised under the New Jersey State Constitution, which was unique in the nation at the time. However, in 1807, the New Jersey legislature eliminated the property requirement for voting rights and limited the ballot to white males. And whereas in 1867, New Jersey residents Lucy Stone and Harry Blackwell organized the New Jersey Women's Suffrage Association, or the NJWSA, devoted to gaining women's suffrage. And whereas in 1909, New Jersey's first open-air suffrage rallies were held in Orange and Newark, led by Dr. Emma O. Gantz and Martha Clanchakin, with the NJWSA collecting 5,000 signatures for a petition in support of the federal amendment guaranteeing and protecting women's constitutional right to vote. And whereas, although the 1912 state referendum on women's suffrage was soundly defeated in the New Jersey legislature, a corner was turned for the New Jersey suffrage movement. And whereas in 1913, an automobile rally led by General Rosalie Jones traveled through New Jersey on the way to Washington, D.C. in a suffrage parade, over 8,000 marchers, with many New Jersey women included in the event's organizer, Alice Paul. And whereas in 1915, a second suffrage constitutional referendum was pursued in New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, and Massachusetts, with active campaigns by many suffrage organizations, including the passing of the Torch of Liberty via tugboat on the Hudson River from New York to New Jersey, but was defeated in all 4 states in 1915. And whereas in 1917, New Jersey suffragists Alice Turnbull Hopkins, Julia Hulbert, Beatrice Reynolds Kincaid, and Minnie D. Abbott picketed in front of the White House as part of the Silent Sentinels, and subsequently were arrested and imprisoned. And whereas on June 4th, 1919, Congress passed the 19th Amendment guaranteeing all American women the right to vote, and whereas on February 9th, 1920, New Jersey became the 29th state to ratify the 19th Amendment, granting women the right to vote, and whereas shortly after the ratification of the 19th Amendment, Margaret Laird and Jenny Van Ness were the first 2 women elected to the New Jersey Assembly in 1921, and in 1925, Rebecca Estelle Bourgeois Winston of Estelle Manor was New Jersey's first woman mayor. Now therefore be it resolved, in honor of the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment, Chatham Township will light the municipal building in purple, one of the colors of the New Jersey suffrage movement, for the week of February 10th. Be it further resolved that the Township Committee supports the efforts of New Jersey Centennial New Jersey Women Vote and strongly encourages local celebrations of this historic milestone. Adopted February 13th, 2020.
Can I have a,
Yes, I agree.
would you like to move that, Karen?
I move that this be resolved by the Township Committee here this evening.
Very good. And a second?
I would love to second it, because Alice Paul was grew up in I grew up in Alice Paul's hometown in Moorestown, New Jersey. She was an integral part of the suffrage movement in New Jersey. She was imprisoned 5 times. She went through a hunger strike and was force-fed, and it highlights some of the struggle that women had 100 years ago, trying to actually get the right to vote. It's quite violent, it's quite long, but here we are all on that, so I'd like to second.
Very good. Greg, can we have,
Mrs. Ewald?
I proudly vote yes.
Mrs. Fandanco?
Yes.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ness?
Huzzah!
Mayor Kelly?
and I am proud to vote yes, too.
Motion
Do we
passes.
do we have anyone in the audience to accept the proclamation?
Rosella.
Very good.
Do you want to do both, because she'll accept both, or?
You said both? Okay, let's do the other one, too. Tracy, if you could do the honors?
I would be absolutely proud to do so. Resolution 2020-063, resolution of the Township Committee of the Township of Chatham supporting the celebration of the 100th anniversary of the founding of the League of Women Voters in the United States. Whereas the League of Women Voters was founded in 1920 as a mighty political experiment by the four mothers of the suffragettes movement at the National American Women's Suffrage Association. And whereas its goal was to help the 20 million women who were granted the right to vote by the 19th Amendment understand and carry out their new responsibility as voters. And whereas, I just realized I don't have the microphone on. And whereas with the success of this effort and the tireless efforts over the last 100 years to strengthen and uphold its mission to empower voters, defend democracy, the League has become a trusted, nonpartisan grassroots organization. And whereas the League has sponsored legislation and fought in the courts to protect and strengthen voting rights and access for free and fair elections, for civil rights for all, including children and minorities, for community health, for public education for all people, for resource protection and conservation. And whereas the League has been consistently noted for its nonpartisan election information, including sponsorship of candidate forums and information on state and local ballot issues, as well as its commitment to register, educate, and mobilize voters. And where the League champions government systems that are open, transparent, inclusive, and equitable, and whereas the League believes that active and engaged citizens, irrespective of gender, ethnicity, or political affiliation, are the hallmark of democracy. Now, therefore, be it resolved that February 14, 2020 is designated the League of Women Voters Day of Action, We honor and congratulate the League of Women Voters on its 100th anniversary and commend the League for its significant contributions to empowering voters and making democracy work. Adopted February 13th, 2020, Township of Chatham.
And we'll take that as a motion.
I'm going to move that.
Okay, can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Greg, can we have the roll call?
Mrs. Ewald?
Yes.
Mrs. Fundaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ness?
Yes.
Mayor Kelly?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Very good.
We have
Yes.
Rosella Clyde here to accept the resolutions.
Why don't we all come down and make the presentation?
Once I saw your picture on the paper.
Anyway, hold this and present it to it. Should I select it there? Go ahead, slide it in.
Here we are.
Let me get the end.
Thank you very much, Rosella. Thank you for all the work that you've done. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
And if you have a few words that you'd like to say?
Yes, I will.
Very good. Okay. Next one.
On behalf of the League of Women Voters, I would like to thank the Chatham Township Committee for this recognition and let you know that between the late 1940s and early 2000s, Chatham Township had its own League of Women Voters chapter that was extremely active. Unfortunately, the numbers dwindled, and so Chatham Township and Chatham Borough merged along with Madison, and today we're part of the Morristown area League of Women Voters, and I serve as the education director for the League of Women Voters. I would also like to invite anybody who would like to celebrate our Day of Action to join us on Sunday, February 16th. We're going to assemble on South Street in front of the fountain by the Morristown Green, and then we're going to proceed over to the Iron Tavern. We'll meet on South Street at 3:30 and go to the Iron Tavern at 4 o'clock. And we're going to receive a proclamation there from Congresswoman Sherrill's office. So we welcome anybody who is interested. As you read in the proclamation, the League of Women Voters is open to everyone, males, females, children. Our purpose is to educate and to support the political process. We are nonpartisan, but we are certainly civically engaged. Thank you.
Thank you. And as you see from the agenda, there's still another 100th anniversary, so February 100 years ago was a happening time. Resolution 2020-064, resolution of the Township Committee of the Township of Chatham supporting the celebration of the 100th anniversary of the founding of Parcells Council, number 2086, Knights of Columbus. Whereas the Knights of Columbus was started in 1882 to reinforce men in the faith, to establish a firm brotherhood, and to support the widows and children of departed brothers. And whereas the organization has grown to provide an astounding amount of charitable and locally, nationally, and internationally. And whereas Parcells Council 2086 of the Knights of Columbus was established on February 15th, 1920, it serves St. Patrick's Church in Chatham Borough and Corpus Christi Church in Chatham Township. And whereas there are over 200 men in Parcells Council who serve their families, churches, and communities, providing manpower and donations for numerous programs, events, and charities. And whereas Parcells Council gets its name from Fred Parcells, one of the 5 Chatham men who lost their lives in World War I. And whereas over 50 men have served as Grand Knight of the Council, coming from both the borough and the township. And whereas charity is the first and main principle of the Knights of Columbus. Globally, in 2017 alone, the Knights donated 185,600,673 and 75.6 million hours of service. And whereas, in addition to helping Brother Knights in Need, offering scholarships to Catholic high schools and colleges, and sponsoring Vatican programs, a small sampling of programs include disaster relief, Christian refugee relief in the Mideast, sponsoring vocations, coats for kids, orphan aid, wheelchairs for disaster victims, and ultrasound machines for crisis pregnancy centers. And whereas, in the Chathams, Parcells Council supports the Appalachia Toy Drive, Intellectual Disabilities Drive, Eva's Kitchen, visits to veterans at Lions Hospital, and donates to over 20 charitable organizations. And whereas, on Saturday, February 15th, 2020, Parcells Council will turn 100 and celebrate with an event at the Grand Summit Hotel. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Township Committee of the Township of Chatham recognizes and congratulated Parcells Council 2086 on the 100th anniversary of their founding and applauds the Knights of Columbus with sincere gratitude for their many contributions to the Chatham community. And I move that resolution. Can I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Greg?
Mrs. Ewald?
Yes.
Mrs. Fundaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes, as the granddaughter and the wife of fourth-degree Knights of Columbus throughout our generations, I proudly vote yes as well.
Deputy Mayor Ness?
Yes.
Mayor Kelly?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Do we have anyone here from the Knights to accept the proclamation? Can you please come forward? Should we all go down there? Assist. Thanks for coming. Congratulations. Thank you. Sure.
1, 2, 3. Very good. Thank you.
Have any comments you'd like to make?
Talk about the microphone, right? Well, I think the resolution said so many things. It gave you a 35,000-foot view of what the Knights of Columbus and Parcells does, so very happy to see that. And on behalf of all the members of Parcells Council, I wish to thank you all for this resolution. Wonderful thing. Thanks.
One thing that didn't get mentioned is the fact that the Knights of Columbus is one of the very large life insurance purveyor as well. When Mike read the first sentence that said to support the widows and children of departed brothers, one of the first things that the Knights of Columbus got together and formed to do was a support network for those Catholic men who had died, leaving their widows and children without any means of support. So there is actually, in my professional endeavor, I'm certainly not a Knights of Columbus insurance agent, but they have some $80 billion worth of life insurance outstanding at the ready for widows and children of departed knights and other policy holders. So it's one thing that you don't really think about the Knights of Columbus doing, but they, in a concerted, an actual literal effort to support those who have gone before us in the Catholic family. So thank you for that as well.
Thank you, Karen. The next item on our agenda is a presentation by our much beloved and well-used Library of the Chathams. Andy and Karen, if you would. And thank you for coming. We much appreciate the chance to spread the word. So
Thank you so
the
much.
floor is yours.
Thank you. Thanks, Greg. So I'm Karen Brodsky. I'm the library director, and this is Andy Hollander, the library board president. And I personally know that every committee member has deep knowledge of the library, So we're going to very quickly paint a picture of what's happened over the last 6 years for this project. The library is well used. It's offering an increasingly diverse array of services and resources, and residents are increasing their use of the library. Last year, they made 247,000 visits, checked out 225,000 items, and attended our 1,281 programs 23,000 times. Many community groups use the library repeatedly throughout the year, including Chatham Boy Scouts, Chatham Girl Scouts, Chatham Township Historical Society, the Borough Historical Society, Chatham Democrats, Chatham Republicans, Tri-Town 55 Plus Coalition, the New Jersey Mental Health Institute, and many more. As you can see, we're keeping up with, can you see? Is that focused? The library is keeping up with residents' technology preferences. Mobile app use is tripled since last year. And use of our ebooks and downloadable audiobooks is up, as well as use of print books, magazines, and movies. Use of our reference librarians to answer questions remains high at over 34,000 questions. But the building desperately needs work. In mid-2014, the library board saw that the building wasn't manageable in its current condition. And this recurring water incursion you see here is only one of a myriad of major problems identified by an engineering review. Our 2012 strategic plan, as well as our current strategic plan, made it clear that the existing teen area, which you see pictured here, was completely insufficient for the needs of our teen population, not only in size, but in the lack of technology and other resources, enclosed space, and adequate seating. Trying to fit a teen center in the building led to an overall evaluation of the building as a whole, which culminated in what we called the RMR project. This project pulls together all of the additions made in the library building over time since 1924. This is how the building started. There have been 6 additions since, about every 14 to 16 years as needs dictated. For this particular project we're talking about now, no additional square footage is needed. Instead, the plan makes the space cohesive and usable, eliminating hallways to nowhere and circuitous routes to make the library easier to navigate and maximize effectiveness of the space. So now I'm going to run through all the new spaces that will be created by the plan. Enclosed teen center, a local history room that is worthy of our local history, not the closet we currently call the New Jersey room. New flexible meeting space. Added study rooms for students. Easy access to new books. A children's programming room on the main level. Improved access ramp. This is a rendering of how the ramp would look instead of coming straight out from the back entrance and winding around with the brick wall around it. It would come across the back of the building in one straight shot with a more gradual descent or ascent as you go. It would also add some green features as well and open up the back. Dividable meeting space. Right now we have a great community room that fits 150 people, but how many times do our community groups need to fit 150 people? So within the same space, we can create 2 meeting rooms whenever we need to do it and accommodate more groups. We turn away many, many groups who want meeting space. A community archive space to preserve the rich history, artifacts, and records of our groups. I know the school district calls their program STEM, but the library board has chosen to go with STEAM, adding art to science, technology, engineering, and math. And that space will also double as meeting room space when it's not in use for that purpose. A business center for the many, many home-based businesses in Chatham Township, as well as people who work from home and people who are seeking employment. So this is a lot to take in, but this is the whole plan for the upper level, and I'll be emailing this to Bob for dissemination for everybody to examine. And that's what the lower level would look like. So the library obtained a cost estimate in 2016 of $4.5 million, And in that year, we asked the towns to contribute a combined $3 million toward the project. At this point in time today, our architect and engineer are doing additional work on the plans because codes will change effective March 2020. So we don't know our final number today, but we will very shortly. But in 2016, at this point, when we had these numbers, two things happened. First thing is that the mayors who were serving on the library board at that time asked the library board to fundraise. So the Bridging Space to Place campaign happened, and it's been ongoing, and the library board has in hand $1.5 million toward the project today. The other thing that happened almost immediately after that was approval of the New Jersey Library Construction Bond Act in November 2017. And at that time, our towns rightfully asked the library to apply, but no application was released for 2 years. So it just came out in January with a short deadline of March 9th to April 6th. So it's upon us. So in 2016, we made a request, but now, how are things going to fall out? As I mentioned, the library is going to contribute $1.5 million that we have in hand, plus an additional $65,000 in pledges that we have. But the New Jersey Library Construction Bond Act matches funds. It's a 50%, up to a 50% match, and has $125 million in total available, with this round being $87.5 million available. The State Library says an additional round is anticipated, but it's not a guarantee by any means. So we're making a strong case for grant funding, but it's a competitive process. So Board President Andy Hollander has called a special library board meeting for Friday the 18th, at which time we will have full information from the state and will vote on a funding strategy. We will need resolutions from our two towns in order to make application, but we won't know what that request will be until after that special board meeting.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you very much for this opportunity to present to you, Mayor Kelly, committee members. My name is Andy Hollander, and I am president of the Board of Trustees of the Library of the Chathams. This is my second term as president. I've been a member for 9 years. Important question. So how are we going to validate that the community needs this, wants it? How does the library know our residents will use the services? What would happen if the library doesn't do it? How can we be sure it's cost effective? Well, community feedback and strategic planning. By our strategic planning, which we've conducted over the last decades, we've determined that the community is ready for the new reorganization of the library in the forms that I'll be talking about. The library develops strategic plans, so you know, periodically, and the current one covers the period 2019 to 2022. It's available on the library website if anybody wishes to look at it, and we hope you will. Community feedback. Well, you can read for yourself that we've begun in 2015 to build for the current strategic plan, and we've been as public and transparent as we possibly can be. In 2018, we were reaching out to the community for what they want and for financial support. And at the Fishawak celebration, I don't know if folks can see it, but there's a banner with hundreds and hundreds of signatures, colorful signatures. And it was a really special time for us, and it was great to have people come and sign it. You can see here a listing of donors to the Library of the Chathams, hundreds of these as well. The mural, you may be aware of the board's recent fundraising effort to digitize the Michael Rex mural on the lower level in preparation for the construction project. We're gratified that in 30 days, 82 people supported the effort. The school district as well. A little hard to see again, but it says here STEM survey results from April of 2019. The question is, which of the following do you see yourself using if it was available in the public library? And a number of bars say things including 3D printing, a laser engraver, many things. So thank you to the school district. So what if we don't do the project? The immediate impact will be that the library will continue to uncover costly building problems. Over the longer term, we want to see this important institution evolve and stay relevant as needs change in our community, and they are. Cost effectiveness. Briefly, in 2014, the board hired a first architect to design the teen room. In 2015, the board hired a second architect for plans to integrate the library as a whole. And in 2017, the board hired architect number 3 for plans to integrate the library. So this is not a situation where we see a first option and we're going with it. We're evaluating carefully and we're moving on as needs, as it's appropriate to choose the best folks and the best plan. Over the long term, and that's the short term, over the long term, we want to make sure that the library remains relevant. How does our community benefit? An enclosed, collaborative teen space, an enhanced local history room. And by the way, Karen and I have talked several times, and in person and in emails with the Chatham Township Historical Society. So we're very pleased about being able to showcase all of Chatham Township's important history in the library. Added private study rooms, a business center, a combination STEAM and meeting room, improved lines of sight for easier navigation and safety concerns, engagement of community room and enlargement, rather, of the community room, which is the lunchroom, named after Alice Lunt, beloved of the township and of the Chathams, and I was very gratified to be able to meet Mrs. Lunt when I first joined the board. In addition of the children's activity room, to the children's activity room, back entrance and access ramp improvements, energy savings with the balanced HVAC system, and Mayor Kelly knows that there have been humidity issues, Mr. Hoffman. The library is a hodgepodge of older spaces, going back to 1924, as Karen pointed out, the very first footprint. So we need to modernize. Cost avoidance on infrastructure repairs. I mean, it's one thing to keep on throwing money at things that need to be repaired, but it's another to more proactively sit back and say, how can we avoid that increment that we would have to do reactively? So, in closing, the board believes that the project is a great value and will benefit all residents of all ages in many ways. We ask the Township Committee for your support. We expect to send Mr. Hoffman a capital request on February 19 after the board meets to determine the amount. Thank you very much. If you have any questions or comments, I know Karen and I are here, and we're always available as you wish.
Thank you, Andy. Do you have any questions at this time?
What is your expected, given you get the funding and given that you have a favorable response to the funding? I know this is the first time program and first time out. When would you expect for this to start?
It could start as early as October. And if we're going to be applying, as Karen mentioned, deadline of April 6th, the state library will be deciding during the interim, and contracts, I believe, can be entered into as early as September, and construction can begin as early as October.
And as was explained, there's no action needed tonight, but we will be looking at a request shortly. So,
Mr. Mayor, as a point of order?
Sure.
Thanks. Just to clarify, the library board will be meeting on the 19th, or will be sending over some information on the 19th with a request. If the library is successful, they would be able to start the project with the funds that have been fundraised by the library. Their request to the township and to the borough, I believe, would be for capital funds for 2021. I don't want to speak for you, but I believe that's what we had talked about. So they would be able to start if they were successful, and the township and the borough would be making a commitment for capital funds for the next budget cycle.
Thank you, Bob.
You want to give a plug for the book sale while you're here?
It's coming.
Are donations still
Collecting
ongoing?
donations now until Sunday the 23rd, and then the preview sale will be on Friday, the 13th, and then the sale will be starting on the 14th.
Everybody's trying to downsize, clean up, scale down, give books away. There's no better recipient than that, for sure.
All books welcome. And
All books welcome.
on that note, for all of us who have been to the book sale, we know how special it is. There's such an amazing vibe at the book sale, so positive. And for those of you who have not, it's a wonderful experience. We're so happy our library can provide it. And thank you, Mrs. Wertz.
Yeah, I will also say that when we think of how technology has replaced an awful lot of the way we interact with education, interact with our own curiosity, our gathering of information, the fact that the library remains a vibrant destination, the fact that trips are up. And of course, you've stepped right into the 21st century with the apps, the online capabilities. Shows how proactive you are to make sure that you do remain relevant and you do remain a source of focus for our community. And I think it's great that you have continued to be proactive in that regard. So we thank you. I mean, generations, our brick is on the walkway from going back however many, 20 years probably. But we're all very grateful for everything you do, and we are grateful for the people who have gone before you and served, and we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for all you do for our community. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to say that just in terms of users, I've been there so far this year for a cultural committee meeting of the Chathams, Chatham Historical meeting. I went to the suffrage presentation, and I've been there for voter meetings. So it's not even, we're only a month and a half into the year, and I've already been there 1, 2, 3, 4 times. The programs and the diversity of programs that you offer that I try to highlight on our website or on our Facebook page are amazing. Everything from Chinese language and culture to Sierra Club meetings to game nights for the kids to movie nights. If you ever go on the library's page, which I encourage you to do, there are so many things that they offer that are of community interest or just piques your interest to go and check it out. So it's a terrific service, and the number of things that you provide for the community are really wonderful.
And I have to add to that, because the library is truly a community gem, and I appreciate all that you do to make it that way. And it has evolved with, as Karen said, the times, but it's also evolved with my kids. So from when they were little and we were in the children's room reading the books, to when we would participate in the reading contests and all the celebrations around that, and then when they're older and studying or doing research, and I would hang out and do a puzzle while I was waiting for them. I mean, it just really is such a gem, and I want to thank you for all that you do for our community.
Thank you.
Thank you for your kind words, and thank you for your support.
Karen? Thank you. Karen and Andy, if you could stay through the start of our public comment section, and then when we get to that point, I'll ask the public if they do have any questions about the library project. They would be the first at the microphone, and because you'll have answers better than we will. Thank you. Our next order of business is reports. Stacy, we're going to start on the left hand of the dais tonight. So.
Okay, thank you. So we had our first Finance Committee meeting this past week, and I just wanted to let the community know that, and Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, that February 27th, the budget will be introduced with the goal of adopting the budget on March 26th. Mayor's Wellness Committee met, and the next meeting will be March 10th at 8:30 a.m. This month is American Heart Month, so they asked me to read something. An acknowledgement of the importance of the ongoing fight against cardiovascular disease, February each year is designated American Heart Month. The Mayor's Wellness Advisory Committee of the Chathams urges all men and women to prioritize their health and to take the necessary measures to lead a heart-healthy lifestyle. We can all take decisive action to control our cardiovascular health and support and motivate friends and family members in their efforts to curb unhealthy behaviors. Community groups, educators, and fitness and healthcare professionals can provide guidance, support, and encouragement on the journey to better health. You know, American Heart Month, this hits many of us personally. My family had a situation this past year, and it comes out of nowhere. So please try and be proactive and do what you can before. Sometimes it happens very suddenly, and it's very destructive. So I really encourage everybody. And it actually segues, I'm pretty sure next month is Nutrition Month, and there's a lot that we can do from a nutrition and exercise perspective to help with our heart health. So there probably will be a lot of resources. Keep an eye out over the next month. The Mayor's Wellness Committee in April also will be, at the end of April, they're looking to run at the Madison Y free seminar on advanced care planning to plan for the future and to make decisions about medical care and treatment. So also keep an eye out for that. Other meetings, Planning Board meeting was canceled, the last meeting. The next meeting will be February 24th. The Board of Health meeting was canceled. Their next meeting is March 10th at 7:30 p.m. Those meetings are open to the public. Senior Advisory Committee, just to make the public aware, February 20th at 2 p.m. That's in the borough at their municipal building. And the Madison Chatham Coalition, their next meeting is February 20th at the Madison Community Arts Center.
Thank you, Stacy. Celeste, can I ask you to go next?
Yeah, I have one announcement with the Historical Society, and there on Sunday the 23rd at 2 p.m. there will be a presentation by Glenn LeBoeuf at the municipal building here, and it's about John and Abigail Adams, and that's all I have.
That's fine, thank you. Karen?
A true American love story, John
Yes,
and
right.
Abigail Adams, aren't they? I can't wait for that. They're inspirational, great founders of our nation. Just one item really for us all, folks. The New Jersey State Association of Chiefs of Police awarded certification status to our great police chief, Tom Miller, just in their early February meeting. Achieving command executives join a select group of only 33% of state chiefs of police here in New Jersey. It's a great honor for Chief Tom Miller. He is a wonderful leader of our police department. We feel that any honors that he gains are a reflection not only of his dedication to his profession, but of his dedication to our police force and from our perspective, his dedication to the residents of Chatham Township and our homes. He achieved the rank of Accredited Command Executive for Chiefs of Police. You may know that Chatham Township Police Chief Tom Miller has been on the force for 21 years. He was promoted to our Chief of Police in 2018. He was previously certified as Command Executive while holding the rank of Lieutenant. In addition to all of his book learning, if you will, including associate's degrees, bachelor's degrees, and master's degrees, he is also a graduate of the Police Executive Institute through the New Jersey State Association of Chiefs, the FBI Law Enforcement Executive Development Program, the New Jersey State Association of Chiefs and Police Command and Leadership Program. Chief Miller is the past accreditation manager for the Chatham Township Police Department. We all remember how impressed we were with our department's accreditation program just a couple of years ago, before Chief actually assumed the role of police. He served as a member of the Morris County Prosecutor's Office Narcotics Task Force, and is, of course, the lead in our Office of Emergency Management. Once again, I just am so proud of Chief Miller and the amount of dedication he has to our community and to all of you folks and to all the residents and visitors and business owners of our community. So hats off to Chief Tom Miller. We're really so very proud of him and grateful for all that he does and his dedication.
Tracy?
Yes. Sorry, I'm going to put this back on. We had two committee meetings this week, one with Colony Pool. The Colony Pool Committee got back together in preparation for the 2020 season. And we had a lot of interesting conversations about how to continue to grow the membership. We had about 34 new members last year, and part of our mission is to continue to grow the membership. We did reduce rates last year in recognition of the declining enrollment, and we saw that we regained and then some. So that seemed to work very well. If you know somebody who wants to run the concession stand, we're looking for a vendor for the concession stand. We had Meat House last year. Their tri-tip sandwiches were delicious, but for a variety of reasons, they decided not to re-up this year. So that was kind of disappointing. Our new member, Mark Lois, did a very interesting plot point map and looked at membership and clusters of membership so that we can pinpoint our marketing to help drive membership. And so that was a very interesting addition. So we're really very focused on looking at how we can continue to grow membership, improve the facility. We'll have the new walking trail this year. The sprinklers were repaired. We did seeding and aerating. So we're hoping to get a nice level grass for this year. And we've talked about a variety of marketing ideas, varying musical guests, doing kids musical hours, doing some more children's programs, and we hope to present that to you shortly. We also hope to open up membership and possibly do some sort of early registration special. The Joint Rec met. The Joint Rec Committee of the Chathams meets about 4 times a year, and we talk about programs and services that are provided within the township and within the borough. Focuses mainly on K-8 recreational sports, and we meet 4 times a year. And just to give you a sense of participation, spring of 1990, spring of 2019, we had a season total participation. This is across all sports of soccer, softball, summer softball, baseball travel, lacrosse, track, of 3,273. Fall night 2019, we had 1,838 participating in field hockey, flag football, cheerleading, soccer, cross country, and baseball. And winter 2019 through 20, through this year, through 2020, we currently have 1,321 participating in youth basketball, travel basketball, men's basketball leagues, basketball over the age of 35, women's volleyball over the age of 25. So in case you didn't know, we do offer recreational programs and opportunities for adults, wrestling and skiing. Chief among those were the highest participation, probably not surprisingly, is lacrosse, K to 8 at 827. Basketball from 3 to 8 has about 720 participants. Baseball, K to 8, 713. So it's quite a healthy program that's going on. Our sports moved off of a township and borough recreational system several years ago, and they're all at private clubs now. You can find registration information and information about the programs on the community website, the Chatham Recreation website. And that's what I have for the joint meeting of recreation. That's
Very
all I
good.
have.
Thank you very much. Albert, do you have anything to report?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Bob?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, very good. And I'd just like to say one thing. It's, we had 4 proclamations about 100th anniversaries, but I can report that this past week, Chatham Township celebrated its 214th birthday, February 12th, 1806. And at that time, Chatham Township would have encompassed areas that are now inclusive of Harding, Madison, Chatham Borough, and Florham Park. So we've had quite the storied history. And that's all I have to report. Our next order of business, the introductory ordinance has been postponed, so we'll skip over that and come to the public hearings and final adoptions of ordinances. Greg, could you read the first one?
It's an ordinance of the Township of Chatham, County of Morris, State of New Jersey, amending Chapter 6 of the Township Code to amend the annual renewal fee for liquor licenses. And as I explained at the last meeting, the only change of this ordinance is to raise the distribution license fee to the state maximum allowable license renewal fee of $2,500.
Thank you, Greg. Could I have a motion?
So moved.
And second?
Oh, we need public hearing first.
Before we introduce it?
Well, we already introduced it.
Okay.
Adoption, so we need public hearing.
Okay.
Public hearing.
If anyone would like to comment on our liquor license fees amendment, please come forward. Seeing no one? Okay,
So moved.
very good. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Ewald?
Yes.
Mrs. Findaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ness?
Yes.
Mayor Kelly?
Yes,
Motion passes.
very good. And Greg, could you read the second ordinance?
An ordinance of the Township of Chatham, County of Morris, State of New Jersey, to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank, NJSA 40A:4-45.14.
Thank you. Bob, can you give a thumbnail explanation on that?
Sure, Mr. Mayor. This is an annual ordinance that is done. This allows the township to increase its cap bank from 2.5% to 3.5%. There's a 3-year average, and this is done so that in the event of an emergency, if the township needs additional funds, it is available. As is listed in the ordinance, the additional 1% would equate to $117,688.56 that would be applied to the cap bank. There's a calculation that's on the state website, the Division of Local Government Affairs. So this would allow us to have access to a 3-year rolling fund that would include 2018, 2019, and then now 2020.
And this is an action we've taken every year in recent
That is
history.
correct, for at least the last 10 years.
Yeah, very good. Would anyone like to comment on this ordinance? Seeing no one, could I have a motion to pass this ordinance?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Thank you. Greg?
Mrs. Ewald?
Yes.
Mrs. Fundaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ness?
Yes.
Mayor Kelly?
Yes. The next item is the consent agenda. Greg, if you'd read those for us?
Yes, it's delightfully late this evening. Resolution 2020-65, payment of bills. 2020-66, approving meeting minutes. 2020-67, approving executive session minutes. And 2020-68, authorizing right of entry agreement for PSC&G.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to pass those?
So moved.
In a second? Thank you. Greg?
Mrs. Ewald?
Yes.
Mrs. Fundaco? Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ness?
Yes.
Mayor Kelly?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is the hearing of citizens. If you would note, please, that this is an opportunity for any member of the public to be heard about issues that are not public topics scheduled for public hearings tonight. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers will be limited to 5 minutes. And as a courtesy to our visitors from the library, if anyone has any questions or comments about the library, if you would go first so that they're not kept here any longer than their topic is being addressed.
And a reminder for anyone that may be speaking at a public meeting for the first time, please give your name and address.
Okay. Seeing no questions on the library, please feel free. Anyone wants to come to the microphone.
Is there a sign sheet?
Oh, that's my,
Oh.
that's okay, that's okay, go ahead.
You had it so official there, no sign sheet tonight.
No, that's the,
Okay.
That's the Board of Education.
Okay,
thing.
sorry.
The Board of Ed.
Okay, I'm battling a cold, I'm not on my game, excuse me. Jane Devlin, Chatham Township, River Road. I want to go on record again that I support affordable housing in Chatham and like communities. I would hope any efforts at mediation and to find the best possible sites for all the units in our community doesn't translate to a delay or stall tactic in accepting and welcoming affordable housing and its residents. We have so much. We are blessed and privileged, and we should share what our community so abundantly has. Thank you.
thank you.
I'd like to wait for the handout to be given. If you want to start talking? Well, I want them to follow the handout if I can. If you want to start, your name, your address? Oh, okay. I'm Michael Oyan, 3 Crest, Chatham. I wanted to discuss a cost comparison I've recently done between two plans for affordable to provide the remaining 74 units of affordable housing. One is the so-called municipal building plan, which would involve locating 65 units here, and if we build a new municipal building on the skateboard site. And the second would be a River Road development as a core element in a variety of plans, and that would involve also moving the police department to this site and upgrading the building for the new police requirements and fix the problems with the current building. And the numbers I'm using here are the numbers that I believe that Mr. Hoffman has more or less agreed to, not the numbers that I put out where I was arguing that perhaps the costs were higher. So this should be a consensus number. And I got a municipal building plan total cost, if you include all elements, of $17 million. That included 9.9 for the new municipal building, a $2.5 million subsidy to the developer of the senior center. Actually, the estimate was between 2 and 3, so I just used 2.5. $2 million in lost value for the value of this property to the township being used as office space, which is going to be raised, so that's just throwing away value. $1 million for the value of the land donated to the developer. And then I have a question mark on these last three. They're sort of my guesstimates of $300K for the land for a 9+ unit group home, which I understand is going to possibly be utilized to bring the 65 up to 74. $200K for temporary relocation of the senior center. That's a guesstimate. And I put in $100K for possibility of temporarily relocating the police department to the municipal building during the construction of the new municipal building. I talked to Mr. Hoffman about that, and he said he's hoping to avoid that, but it may be something that has to be done. Now, as opposed to that, if you take the prior plan for developing the River Road property and think of it as a 4-story building which you could lop different layers off or floors off, you could configure that space for anywhere from, say, 32, I think, to roughly 40, 50 units, if you can find other places to site a multi-site development. So the costing for that would be $7.3 for the move of the police department to the upgraded municipal building, $200,000 for the land at the River Road site. Actually, it's $155. I just rounded stuff up. $1.7 million to extend the township sewer system to the River Road site. That's the full estimate of the cost of the sewer system. Some of that would be paid for by the users. And I tossed in another $300,000 for additional steep slope engineering and site preparation. That brings the core cost up to $9.5 million. In my memo, I rounded it to 10. Basically, that says if you were to fully develop that site with the unacceptable plan, that's about what it would cost. But if you lop off floors of that and then go somewhere else and develop other alternatives to add on to it to get up to the 74, you would have those additional costs to be determined. But what I'd like to point out is that plan allows a lot of flexibility in developing a multi-site plan, because at only $9.5 or $10 million, you're $7 million less than the plan that had been proposed for the municipal building, 65 units. And so it seems to me that the River Road site as a core part of a multi-site plan is much more economical than the municipal building plan, and it gives you a lot of leeway in spending a lot of extra money for additional land, buying additional land. And also I understand from Mr. Hoffman that smaller site developments will probably have to be subsidized because you can't get the full funding for those developments from state funds. But the point I'm trying to make is it appears to me that a lot of people want a multi-site development in which the affordable housing is spread around the township, and it appears to me that this sort of approach is much more economical, actually, than putting a very large amount of the development here at the municipal building, revamped municipal building. That's the only point I wanted to make. And I know my memos were very long and involved, but hopefully this boils it down.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate you hitting the highlights, and we definitely will consider that. Is there anyone else who would like to come to the microphone?
Are you coming out? Hi, Willa Carlson, River Road. I just wanted to read a little statement. I have a ton more that I could say, but perhaps tonight will not be the night to say it all. Paul and I moved to River Road with our 2 children approximately 40 years ago. We looked at other properties, other houses. We chose the tranquility of River Road because it suited our wants and our needs, not because we couldn't afford to live somewhere else. Our house was the second oldest on River Road area, built in the 1880s. The one across the street was more revolutionary age, middle 1700s. Some of the houses in the area were built as summer homes, eventually converted to year-round homes. Many of the homes on River Road have been remodeled, some recently and rather nicely indeed, as far as that goes. A few of our neighbors have moved away. Many have stayed. There were people in the neighborhood before we moved in 40 years ago. They're still there. They intend quite clearly and have said quite clearly to us that they intend to stay in their home. They do not wish to move. They do not wish to be forced out. Some owners are there for the same reasons that we are, the reasons that we like it there. There's a large variety of flower and vegetable gardens in the area. We have the river for boating. We had a dog years ago who thought she could join the boats, the canoes and the rowboats that as they passed the river if we were there. We had to kind of restrain her from wanting to jump in and swim along and enjoy the afternoon with them. We have a variety of mammals, and I'm not even including mice and rats, which nobody wants to think about, but there are 6 to 8 varieties going all the way as large as the bears that pass through as they hibernate. We had, and it was a joy for our children, when we first moved there, 2 muskrats. They named them Bert and Ernie. They moved up from the river into the ditch area and spent a winter there. That same dog liked to go and watch them a lot, but there was no problem with that. There are lots of activities like that that nobody even realizes. We have neighbors who also enjoy with us. I think I counted 35 varieties of birds within the area. We have turtles, we have snakes, multiples of butterflies, insects, wild plants to observe and watch. One neighbor likes to hit golf balls out back. Where will she be able to do that with large-size affordable housing units? I'm not saying we don't deserve some, but we don't deserve more than our share just because other people don't want it in their neighborhood. That has to be considered. Another neighbor has produced some absolutely fabulous honey from the beehives in the back. We ourselves, Paul and I, host maple syrup boiling, tapping, working using the brace and bit to insert the spiles and the hooks, put up the buckets. We've done that for outings for kindergarten classes and scout troops from Chatham Township, New Providence, and Berkeley Heights. We would certainly be willing to continue that for anyone who wishes to bring a class or group. Paul has taken the tradition of a neighbor in using his John Deere tractor and cart to give tractor rides. Originally, the first neighbor, Uncle Al, as he was called, would take around his yard and down around the firehouse and back. He can still do that. And our last riders were 3 boys who lived in the Bronx on a fabulous apartment overlooking the Hudson River. You could not believe the excitement and the joy in their faces that they got in that tractor and hung on. They thought for dear life, and he took them around on that great big trail that's available. My point in saying all of this is that there is so much to be included in these discussions, things that you perhaps are not even aware of. Things like mini waterfalls that are created in a large rainstorm, and they cascade down the hills, sometimes just going down storm drains, sometimes flooding the road and going across the street. There's an impact, a serious impact from the removal of trees and plants, paving up, and the environment, the animals, the plants, and the water. Where will the water go? To the river. Will it be taking with it I don't know, gasoline from car leaks in the parking lots? Will it be emptying into the river some antifreeze leaks, those kinds of things? They have to be considered because the river is a really vital part of the environment, and we have to consider all of the impacts of the environment. And I just wanted to say that when we moved into the house, we thought we were in a great place. We have had some things kind of more or less forced upon us. Number one was the elimination of buses. Our children, elementary children, were considered walkers to Mountain View School, which is right here. Anybody want to raise their hand? They like to walk up River Road? Kindergartners included, first, second, third graders? No, it was totally unsatisfactory. So we did our carpools along with everybody else. We also have the impact of those over 10-ton trucks, that's a little tongue twister there, that rattle by, rattle windows at our houses without enforcement, I think, from the police department to say that signage is up, no trucks over 10 tons allowed on River Road. We also have had the joy of having hunting imposed on our neighborhood. I, for one, went out back and there was a dead doe in the yard. It's not pleasant, and I don't think that happens in other neighborhoods. And then I just want to say that we have this. I wonder that, and we also in the neighborhood have the feeling is, why do we have the impression that people, I don't even, maybe some of you here have this impression, that your homes and your property are of more importance and greater value to you than our homes and our properties are to us. It's something that we think about and talk about. Another question is...
Ms. Carlson, we try to limit people to 5 minutes.
Okay, I have one more sentence.
Very
Is
good.
that fine?
Thank you.
Why should our homes be devalued, and why should we consider that we may have serious financial loss at the point when we decide that it's time for us to leave our home and move to some place that will suit our needs better? Thank you.
Thank you. I think those were great stories. Anyone else like to come to the microphone? Okay, Mike?
Yeah, I'd like to make a couple of additional points, which I sort of got rushed through. And that is, in my original presentation, I should have said the original proposal was a 4-story building, and 2 smaller versions could be a 3-story building on the same footprint, or a 2-story building, or a combination of some parts 2-story, some parts 3-story. Now, I had also circulated a memo saying there are ways of making these large block-like buildings that tend to be built for affordable housing, particularly if it's the rear view, that make them look like massive structures. Whereas if you consider the Juniper Assisted Living building across from the ShopRite Mall and see how that building has been segmented into a number of what are apparently smaller buildings by using brick facing on some, clapboard on others. You recess the clapboard, you bring the brick facing out. You can make a building a lot more attractive than a cost-conscious developer would make it. And the point I'd like to make is that given the high cost of converting this facility to 65 units versus the core River Road property development costs, I think you could afford to spend a fair amount of extra money on additional architectural features, which would make a 2 to 3-story mixed structure there look a lot more attractive. And then the other point I'd like to make is that I think that any multi-site plan should involve some housing near Chatham Square for people who don't have transportation. And I've, in the past, suggested at least one property that I think should be a prime target for acquisition for that. And I would hope that any plan you do that's a multi-site plan would at least have some housing near shopping so that people without transportation can live there conveniently. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? Seeing no one, we'll close the public portion of the public comment portion and move on to our first discussion item, which is goals and objectives. These were published on our webpage for anyone who is interested in those. This is something new that we're trying to do in organizing the township's goals and objectives in writing and prioritizing, and to give the township committee and the public kind of a guide to what projects and expenses might be coming down the road, and to help us budget and plan. We've had previous discussions on this, but tonight's the intent is to wrap it up, and if I could just open it up for discussion?
Wanting people to leave. I think that we had a terrific, what we had was a work meeting in the beginning of January, which is something that we are going to try and do possibly some more of, where we have time, which is where we put things out, openly discuss them, talk about how we want to, the goals and objectives to work, what the purpose was, and just engage in open conversation as in a work setting, in a work meeting setting. And that's what these, the final version of our goals and objectives came out to be. The goal of the goals and objectives is to put a framework around how we budget and how we create a financial plan. And as Mike said, this is a new process. It's something that I think pretty much every town does. So I think this is a wonderful step forward to getting us to long and short-term financial planning, long and short-term capital planning, and I don't have any changes to any of these.
Yeah, I think we've had a couple of chances to work on this in subcommittees and then in the public meeting. And I think that I would certainly support that the shape it's in now. I think it's a great start of a guideline, and it can always be amended going forward and improved on, I'm sure. But if very good.
I have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the point is that this is going to be a living document, and priorities and needs may change over time. And so this puts a stake in the ground and gets us moving in the right direction.
Bob, do you have any comment that you want to add to this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I'd just like to point out that, you know, this has been a collaborative effort. Many of the items that are involved in our goals are things that had been done, but they hadn't been done formalized in a formalized way. They were sort of intuitive, but you know, things evolved, and we're bringing things forward so that there's more of a holistic view. But this is a good start.
And that's a very good point. This is not inventing things from scratch here. This is truly recognizing a lot of work that has been done in the past as well.
Right. One of the other things that'll come that's going to be coming out of this is we're now able to calculate the amount of man-hours that we have available for work throughout all of our staff members, and we'll be able to assign to calculate the time that projects take versus time that's available. So we'll be able to help next year and the year after prioritize based on availability of staff and man hours.
Okay.
Or I guess it's staff hours.
Very good.
If I
Good
may.
catch.
This is wonderful because I think it gives us all a common language and goal setting in terms of where we want to be. So I thought this process was wonderful. Question for you, the version that Greg just gave me that says same date but revised does not have, you had some dates on the original, which I really liked because it gave a sense of when we were trying to get certain things done.
The Township Committee, the one that's dated January 28th, that's not revised, that has the dates on it. We put the other memo on the website, and I took the dates off because the Township Committee hasn't approved this document yet. Hadn't approved it.
Okay.
So we were asked to put it out so people could see it, but it was not appropriate to put a finalized document on.
Any other comments? I would entertain a motion to approve these.
So moved.
In a second? Very good. Greg, if you call the roll.
Yeah, it's going to be Resolution 2020-059. Mrs. Ewald?
Yes.
Mrs. Fondaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ness?
Yes.
Mayor Kelly?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And the next discussion item, possible advisory committees, is really a direct outgrowth of this, because one of the items in the goals and objectives is to consider some advisory committees on some special topics that where we could benefit from some organized input from citizens, and in some cases it's where we sense that there is and we've received some interest by citizens to get involved in this kind of a project. But again, I welcome any conversation among members on what topics and what advisory committees might be the kind of things that we're talking about. Yeah, I think the Senior Advisory Committee really is the top of the top order, and maybe really the one for tonight. Can I?
Go ahead. Why don't you go ahead and
Okay.
give a synopsis of what you've spoken to?
Okay. The Madison and Chatham Borough have begun to organize a senior advisory committee and have asked us if we would, they would welcome our participation. And several of our township residents who are just kind of auditing their meetings have also expressed their interest. It's an interesting concept. It appears to be a totally separate initiative from our own very valuable and very active Senior Citizen Center. They are not talking about programs and activities of that kind. They're really looking at digging into a couple of topics, specifically transportation and housing for senior citizens, where communication among the three towns would really benefit all of our residents. And with the importance of those topics and with the interest level that we've received comments about, I think the suggestion is that we activate our own Senior Advisory Committee and plug into this three-town effort and see where it leads, and see what what they're doing, studies and surveys to see what the needs are, and I think our citizens would benefit from involvement in that. So I know some other people have already gotten involved in this from different directions, so maybe if they want to share their perspective on it, that would be great.
Yeah, I would love to chime in. So I attended the Senior Advisory Committee meeting, which is the Chatham Borough has already they had a resolution that they accepted to enact a Senior Advisory Committee. The piece with Madison is Tri-Town, and Tri-Town is focused on housing and transportation right now. The Senior Advisory Committee, their advocacy for seniors was very broad, and the Senior Center is just one way to implement some of the initiatives. So I thought it was wonderful. More importantly, the seniors that were in the room thought it was wonderful. There are things that come out that could be immediately addressed, and really they should have that voice to get those things done. And then there are things that are going to be longer term. But I think it'd be wonderful for the township to participate in both, in the Tri-Town and the Senior Advisory, which I guess Tri-Town might be an offshoot for whoever's representative on the Senior Advisory Committee. And the other thing is, I don't think we should, rebuild the thing. I think we just see if we can work with Chatham Borough and their Senior Advisory Committee.
Well, I think what's interesting is that Tri-Town had its genesis for the exact same reason. Mm-hmm. They took a survey of issues that mattered to our residents, both Chatham Township, Chatham Borough, and Madison Borough, those being the Tri-Town. The people who were behind it seemed to be a lot of the same people who were behind the Senior Advisory Committee. One thing that Tri-Town did was bring Go-Go Grandparent into our lives. Mm-hmm. Go-Go Grandparent is utilized anywhere Uber and Lyft are utilized. You could be in the middle of nowhere. If you can call an Uber on your phone, you can call Go-Go Grandparent on the telephone or on your flip phone. So you don't need a smartphone or an app. The idea that they brought that in, I thought, was really groundbreaking for helping seniors get around, whether they're going to a play in Morristown or babysitting their kids, children, or whatever it is. So once that pilot program took off, became popular, and discontinued its subsidy, which was the objective, Tri-Town was left with what do we do now with our energy and our participants and all of the communication we've developed. So now I think that a lot of the players have gone from Tri-Town to the Senior Advisory Committee, still wanting to make sure that the voices of our seniors are heard and that people are engaged. As the liaison to the Senior Center, we do have a presentation from the Senior Advisory Committee, more or less to just tell us that they're there, that they're forming groups, that they're interested in hearing people's opinions and needs and assessment of what seniors really do want. And as you said, the activities at the Senior Center are pretty much separate from what the Tri-Town 55+ Coalition and the Senior Advisory Committee are doing now. The Senior Center of the Chathams is a place to go to congregate, to play bridge, symposiums, to take watercolor, to do Tai Chi, to play pickleball. It's an activity center, really. They do field a tremendous amount of calls, week in, week out, asking about programs. So they do have access to a lot of the senior services, a lot of the, when you talk about planning things, home health care resources, all of the other resources for the community. So it's an activity center as opposed to an advisory group. So there's certainly enough room in the space for everybody. The Senior Center of the Chathams is really not anything more than just a great place to go and to provide resources. But if the Senior Advisory Committee is going to start really hitting on issues that matter, I think that's great.
Very good. Anyone else?
Just, just in terms of the form it takes, whether it's coordinating, some of that would have to do with efficiencies that are gained, so whether it's the 3 towns or the 2 towns, but it has to do with efficiencies, but also the ability to get grants. So, you know, if we can serve more, a broader community base, that might allow us
Right,
to...
and what was interesting about the whole go-go grandparent thing, the origination of Tri-Town 55+ was that it was funded with Grata money. So the Grata Foundation is a very large philanthropic organization which actually funded the survey that Tri-Town 55+ did. With the money, the seed money from that, they were able to take the survey data, send it off to an analytics place, and determine what the needs were. When transportation came back as the #1 issue, they were able to go back to Grata Foundation and ask them for seed money or for pilot money for the go-go grandparent rollout, and it became a hit. I don't really know how well it is continued to use, but certainly, and as seniors get more tech savvy, they'll have the app on their phone as opposed to needing to call go-go grandparent. But it was a great way of introducing another transportation option to folks. So there is a lot of money.
Yeah, I think that this is a wonderful opportunity for us to have what is a very large part of our population as seniors to have a voice in community activities in the township. And I do think that I understand the economies of scale. I do think that there are 2 different things, though, going on with issues that might be in the township, with issues that might be in the borough, and there may be opportunities to come together. But here, I think we have some more transportation issues, potentially some more housing issues, with the housing stock being typically higher. The borough has a lot of walkability. So there may be different issues that people bring up that are more relevant. I'm all for joining together, but I don't want to take that away from residents who might have needs that are specific to Chatham Township.
Well, that's
specific
entirely
to
right.
our
Yeah.
topography, so specific to the services that we have or don't have, or rec, or those kinds of things. So I would like to see some sort of ability to come together, and maybe in terms of grant writing and getting financial support or things of that nature. But I would also like for township residents, senior township residents, to have their own. So when we discussed this last year, John Krauthamel came up, and he's also a member of the Senior Center Board. You know, we had discussions around it last year, and the decision was not to move forward. There wasn't enough support to move forward last year. and the borough went ahead and went forward, and I think they had more than 30 people attend, Tom, their first meeting, one of their first meetings. It was very popular, and there were people from the borough and people from the township, and lots of people came out. So I think that just kind of speaks to the interest level of our residents, and so I would be very much in favor of moving forward this year.
Yeah, I guess I'm hearing support here and word of support across the community too. So I would suggest maybe the next step is to publicize our interest, put out word that we're looking for volunteers, and then maybe work with Albert to structure the language of a...
Well, what I was going to suggest is, Committee Member Ewald said that the borough had already adopted a resolution. You should probably adopt a resolution that either mirrors that or slightly changes so that your members, the team that you appoint to that committee, and the members appointed by the borough are all working on the same page. And obviously, any ad hoc committee should have the basics of who appoints them, their term, what their goals are, and an end date of a committee. If it's going to be ad hoc, you can do it by resolution. If it's going to be a standing committee, it should probably be done by ordinance. But I would, in this case, follow the lead of the borough just to make sure you're working jointly.
Very good.
In terms of the mechanics of it, for sure, but I don't think we should, harbor any illusions that our seniors' needs are going to mirror their needs as readily. Chatham Borough and Madison Borough seem to have a lot in common. They've got have a very well-trafficked downtown. They have access to grocery stores. They have access to an awful lot of things. So we definitely have to make sure it's township-centric, so to speak, and not just casting our lot in with the other two towns for the sake of saying we're part of their journey when our community is unique, really.
I think that's the suggestion, that we would do a Chatham Township
Yeah,
Senior Advisory
exactly.
Committee.
No, you're correct. I wasn't suggesting that the goals and objectives be the same. I was just talking about
structure.
procedurally and structurally that you're on the same page. Obviously,
Yes.
both towns have very different goals.
Yes, please excuse Albert, he's too young to understand the complexities of senior advisory committees. Anyway, but I do think the first step might be to pass the word among the people you're talking with, and we will publicize it through the communications committee, and we'll get the ball rolling. And that brings us to our second public hearing.
Are we going to discuss any other possible,
I was going to take it a step at a time, but I'll entertain any further conversation. I thought,
did you have anything?
I mean, just for food for thought, we don't have to go through it now, but we need to better connect with our businesses and the commerce. So anything we could do to help them. So, maybe we could just, if we're not going to flesh it out now, just think about that the next round that we're talking about advisory committees, that might be something worthwhile.
yeah, let's save that for the next round, and don't let it linger too long, but let's hold the thought.
Okay.
Yeah, I would like to kind of echo that. We don't have any contact with our businesses, and welcoming businesses, leveraging relationships with businesses, just making them a part of our larger community, I think would be a huge value add. And the other one that I was interested in is potentially something that some of the other towns have that are experiencing power issues or looking into the infrastructure, is potentially a utilities advisory committee. I know a lot of people are very passionate about, well, not passionate about, but mad about the frequency with which we lose power. And we have something like our environmental commission is both advocacy, research, and kind of keeping an eye over a lot of things that go on in terms of environmental issues, and advise us of those things. And there may be some value into having a utilities advisory committee. There is one currently in the borough, and I believe Madison has their own electrical utility, and I think Berkeley Heights has one as well. So it's just something to consider.
maybe the Communications Committee can put out a call for the Senior Advisory Committee, but maybe also mention the potential for the others, and kind of use that as a testing the waters to see if it has the same kind of motivated pool of volunteers, what we hope is a motivated pool of volunteers, the way we have a sense that the Senior Advisory Committee has. So, okay. Public comment section number 2, Tom?
Yes. Tom Salvas, 12 Lisa Drive. Actually, as a follow-on to my comments at my long comments at the last meeting, I would actually really suggest that in the model of the Mayor's Wellness Committee of the Chathams, which does acknowledge and accept township and borough membership, that really the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee, yes, granted, it was established in the borough by their resolution or ordinance, but they do welcome, and I have participated in the first organization meeting, and Stacy was there as well. And my impression was from Len Resta, who facilitated that meeting, that he welcomed township participation. And I just think from an efficiency standpoint, that would be really the better way to go, as opposed to establishing a separate committee here in the township. I think those township residents who want to advocate for their concerns are welcome to do that in the borough facility. So I don't know about the efficiency of having, our own committee here, to be quite honest with you. I think that it's going to grow. The membership will probably grow. I think Len is indicating we probably have 26, 27 people, and not just from the borough and a few of us from the township, but also the Westfield health educator who covers Chatham Borough is participating. So, and much like Tri-Town, where there are township people, borough people, and Madison people participating, I think it could be a well-run situation. Now, whether we need to have township residents sign the advisory committee form, they've given me one that I have submitted to the borough clerk. Now, if we need to do that for township residents who want to participate on that, that can certainly be done. Or if we need to establish some kind of a volunteer form here where township residents would sign to participate there, that is something certainly to be worked out. But I would really advocate for, in this case, keeping one advisory committee. Okay.
Thank you, Tom.
Tom, can I ask you a question? Sure. When you met with these folks and, having roots here in the community with the Mayor's Wellness Campaign for a long, long time, do you sense that the issues that are concerning seniors in the township mirror those in the borough, or do we just get together and hash over matters of the day?
I think some issues will certainly cross boundaries. There's
Such as?
No question about that. One of the big topics that was raised was information about services, and with all the calendars and things that are being put out by various organizations, there was something that was seriously mentioned about communication and for seniors trying to find out what's happening. It's the big topic that's going to be addressed. But certainly if there are township residents there, they are going to be welcome to bring township-centric questions of whatever it may be, transportation, et cetera, to the table. And I think as a group, and as that group will then communicate those issues to the borough council, the township committee, I think that there's more strength in that happening as opposed to working separately. I mean, that's my personal opinion.
Right, so if you use information as the number one thing that came to mind, just as a response to our discussion now, the idea of getting information out over various platforms, I'm assuming you mean, we were talking about using the TV as a calendar. If you go into a hotel, you click on the TV and it automatically tells you all the 20 things that are going on that day and what they're serving for dessert. So why would we not be able to use out knowing what you know about our town communication, our television channel?
We could certainly go back to, we may recall 10 years ago, we started with a bulletin board that did reflect some township committee or township-centric activities. when the website was redesigned, whole big story, that really went away, because then Facebook became sort of a listing of events and activities. I mean, there are quite a few things. The library has its own calendar. The school district has calendars. The borough has a calendar. We have our own messaging on our website and certainly on our township Facebook. So those channels will probably continue to live. I personally don't know whether one consolidated calendar could really work for the entire community. So it's going to have to be some other, I think, more thorough thinking about, what are the areas of commonality, or how do we structure or help the various folks who do put out calendars to include maybe in them issues that are of concern to the broader community.
Right, and not to micro focus on this topic,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Burbio has so many different people subscribing to Burbio that if we were able to convince organizations throughout our community to use Burbio as a platform for announcing their events on a regular basis, and then push that out to our FiOS and Comcast channels, isn't that possible? To have
Sure.
a scrolling thing all the time, except for when there's actual broadcast.
That would be possible. And it was also raised that some seniors are less technology savvy, so that the online calendars,
Exactly.
the
Yeah, they're
online
not gonna follow
communications
Chatham
are
Township on
a little bit,
Twitter,
yeah.
right?
There was something mentioned about a telephone number that people could call that would have a periodic outgoing message. That's kind of an interesting feature, So, I mean, information, dissemination, acquisition, that's going to be a big topic, but there's lots of others, probably about 15 or 20 topics that Len whiteboarded that he's going to try to get subcommittees organized to work on. And I just think that anybody who's really interested in that could very well join that one committee and work on how things go.
Yeah, it's interesting, as you speak, I remember there were a lot of things that would overlap. I think when it comes to the bigger items, it would have to be borough versus township. So when you're talking about housing issues, transportation, then you got to think about what you could do in each of the communities. But there were a lot of things, and there's, if you're talking about communications, there were a lot of things we both need to do. To repeat that conversation in two separate meetings or two separate efforts doesn't make sense. Plus, we learn from each other. They might be doing stuff that we want to use. And it wasn't just, communications was a big one that came up, but safety. And the police chief was there, and he was able to respond. And whether or not it's a crossing in the borough that our residents are using, or it's a crossing in the township, because we're all in each other's neighborhoods, there were safety issues, and it would have been nice to have our police chief there as well, because he was responsive immediately to some of the things. Simple things, visibility at night, which you don't have to be 60 and over to
No,
be
you
able to
really
see.
don't, because people are invisible out there.
Yeah, and so they were talking about, where you could put reflectors, how you can, simple solutions that would make people's lives a lot easier.
Thank you, Stacy. That's an excellent example. That was a part of a real spirited discussion that started, yeah.
So I think, it's really, I think the seniors who will figure out what works best for them, but we could start the outreach and then see, what form it takes.
Okay. I'd just like to make the point that there are times when the police chief will be able to come, but there's also times when he has other commitments, as was the time of that meeting. So with enough notice, there can be others that will attend, that can cover, that can represent the police and bring in information back. But also there's just lots of activities going on at certain times. So the chief has some other priorities as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak? Seeing no one, I'll close the second opportunity for the public, for public comment. And that brings us to the end of our agenda. Does anyone else have anything before we close?
I
Okay.
do, and it's funny, because when you mention people in transportation, and people being visible, people being out on the road, everybody wants to exercise. It puts such stress on the community to see people not being visible. When they're walking their dogs, everybody's got a black coat. When they're out running, they're riding their bikes, everybody, I don't know how, this to me is it's a huge problem. And if especially now in the shorter months of daylight, that you drive to work in the dark, you come home in the dark, people are walking their dogs, they're out for exercise, they're cycling. and they are all wearing dark-colored clothing. I don't know how you put a plea out to people when they're out on the streets. Pedestrian and cyclist traffic are to wear something more. I went to a senior trans option sponsored wellness event, and they were handing out vests, they were handing out reflector bands you put on your ankles, put on your dog, put on your wrists, whatever, and when headlights flash, you know there's something there. From a public safety perspective, to me, and as a driver, to know that you have no idea who's lurking there on the side of the road until you're just about on them. I don't know, we need some outcry on that, in my humble opinion.
Thank you very much. I have one item that I neglected to mention in my report earlier, is that we had the honor earlier this week of having our former mayor, Typhoon Selen, be inducted as the newest freeholder. So we have a local resident on the freeholder board for the first time in a very, very long time. And so congratulations to him. Congratulations to us for having that community honor. And good luck, Typhoon. Anything further? I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Very good. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Good night, everyone.